So I will give the Dhamma talk in English. Yeah? I presume that you are not beginners. You have into the practice of Vipassana for some time. Is it true? Yeah. I see quite a number of people with white hair, which means that you have been around for some time. And so also you've been practicing for some time. As you might have known, I've been away from the country for many years. I've been away staying mainly in Europe for more than 20 years. Returning only once in a while, once a year or once in 2 years, for a couple of months. But not in Penang. Because the places I started after I left Penang was KL, Malacca, and Kota Tinggi. Somebody is calling for help. But I have been back and holding some retreats. And I've noticed many have been my old students, and a handful of newcomers. Newcomers, that means they are new to me, but not new to the practice. Some are new to the practice. Many are still, they have improved somewhat. But after so long, I feel that they could have done much better. Whatever the reason, I noticed that some things were not fully understood. It's not that they have not been practicing properly. I mean, you have a lot of teachers, you're not without teachers. Like there are Sayadaws, meditation teachers from Burma, and so on. So I ask, why has there not been enough progress? There are some obvious reasons why a person does not progress. Or you say they're stuck. One is they don't have enough merits. This is the worst excuse. They don't have enough good karma, they've not done enough practice in the past. This is the worst excuse. Although there may be some reasons, it is a reason. The second is there are too many defilements. There had always been too many defilements. But what are you doing about it? So finally it boils down to the method. Now all these years, the Dharma practicing has become quite complicated. You may say even confusing. Because there are many other techniques and methods that have come into the picture. Everybody says the mind is the best. Mind is better. Yes? Again, this is not new. Even the Kalama Suttas, there's always, during Buddha's time, they say that. So, to make things simple, I will deal with more of the method as practiced in our tradition, my tradition, and also the tradition Kawasi here is teaching, belonging to the Mahasi Satipatthana Vipassana method. It's basically Vipassana practice based on the Satipatthana Sutta. It's basically just that. And in the Theravada, it is the most common choice nowadays. There's the other type which we call it Samatha Yanika, which emphasizes on the practice of concentration meditations first, before going to the actual practice of Vipassana. Here we do the type which is the approach which does Vipassana mindfulness directly. Okay. So we are not going to argue about which is better. You do Samatha first or Vipassana first, all those. As far as I know, as far as we have been practicing, direct Vipassana still works. This has been emphasized and has gone through many yogis with sufficient results, experiences. If somebody says that all of you are all wrong, you have all been deluded, I would ask, have you really heard and seen all the results of the practices of all those that practice this tradition? Have you really listened to the interviews? Have you listened to their results? If you have, then you know you're talking nonsense. Because what proof have you? Blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go into this. Because we listen to interviews every day from Burma, from Thailand, from all those things. No. So I'm not going to argue about that. Huh? So I'm more interested in servicing our people. That means if your engine is not working properly, what's wrong? I'm more interested in that because I've got more cases than we can actually handle. If anybody wishes to go to the other method, go ahead. I've got some of you off my hair. So, now coming to the point, there are certain concepts in the practice that are not clear enough. Okay. Of course, first what we do is we introduce the basic method, how to walk, how to sit, and so on. That's clear enough. In Burma, we just listen to the tape. And from the Mahasi tape, you come to see the teacher, and teacher asks you, do you understand what is said by the tape? You say yes. If no, then you ask what. Tell them what. And after that, you go to the practice, and after that, you get interviews daily or every other day or what, and where they will check on you. Especially for beginners, the interview and checking would be thorough. Would be thorough, so that you know you get the method right, as shown by the practice and the results you get, and then from there you follow up. The acquirement of the basic meditation techniques of how to sit, how to walk, and so forth properly and correctly, and they see that you've done it properly and correctly. When this is done, you find that you get different results from different people. Why? Because different people understand differently. Different teachers express their instructions differently. So the results will automatically be different. But communication is not so simple. Communication goes through language. It also goes through interpreters. And so you see, the learning process takes a bit of time before it is put into experience. And meditation is based on experience. That's why a large percentage is still within the oral tradition. And a large percentage is talking about experiences, not words. Words and books are just a guide. Yes? For example, the first basic things that come into play for beginner, which I think you are not beginners, you're not supposed to be, is the simple word mindfulness. What is mindfulness? The most important thing we need to know is mindfulness. It's all based on mindfulness. Sati in Pali. And all these people talking what is sati, they can argue so much. I know in Czech Republic, the sati was argued until the whole group starts splitting into very small groups. And what sati? Sati is a mental state. Mental state, then you have to differentiate between a mental state and consciousness. What is the consciousness you're talking about? Meditation is training of the mind, the consciousness. So what is the consciousness? You can talk like you talk Pali lah, citang, citenti, citang, all these things, you know. Then you start interpret the Pali words, di da da, di da da. So finally you're talking about Pali language. Which is okay, but still you need to know the actual meaning of consciousness and mindfulness as an experience. You know? So when the original teacher like the Buddha talk about sati and talk about consciousness, citta, what does he mean? So you argue lah, argue about until your face become blue and black. So it doesn't help. So what you need to do is to get the real meaning of these basic words, like consciousness and mindfulness. Right? So now you are not beginners. So I suppose you all know, right? A famous example, I like to use the example. because it's quite amusing. I remember I went to China, so I wasn't supposed to preach in China, but they put me in a position that I have no choice. So anyway, I talked anyway. So I went to this place called in Jiangxi, where it was the Zen original Chan monastery. I'm not going to go through all this history. And the tradition of the Chan is still living. It was one of the places where the old master, Empty Cloud Shi Lao He had been living and teaching. So he asked me to give a talk there. Okay, you put me on a hot seat, I start giving you trouble. You know, my Chinese is not so good, which is true. I'm not Chinese ad, no? Can you please tell me the best interpretation of the present moment? What do you mean by the present moment? How do you translate into Chinese? Why? Does anybody tell me? So there were all these ideas. This one should be 当下, should be 现在, should be blah, 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 and so on. It shows that they do know something, but they are not so clear about which one. So finally I told them my favorite interpretation of mindfulness in Chinese is 当下, is 自在. You know 自在? Anybody knows Chinese here? Yes, 自在. You know 自在? 自在观世音菩萨观就说空境心境啊，自在啊，自在 in English means natural presence. 自 means nature, 自然 nature. 在 is to be present. And presence, the Pali word is Dhamma. So this is what we actually mean. Mindfulness is in experience. But there are different ways of describing it. So the traditional way of we talk mindfulness is what? Anybody? So mindfulness is the traditional one. They say as sarati. That means they usually translate remember. You know, normally the scholars would say to remember. I disagree with it. Because remember is more of perception, a function of sanya, perception, not mindfulness. You remember in the sense of being present to know what is there. You know, for example, you are daydreaming. Okay, you're daydreaming. So what do you say? Wake up. Then you say, I remember to be present. In that sense, because mindfulness is, we say, encountering the object face to face. So when you come into the actual practice, then it makes sense. Otherwise, you want to practice, you start remembering things. Does it make sense? It doesn't make sense. So there is some difference in the interpretation of word between the scholar and the practitioner. They're two different things, two different worlds. So after a while, I talk about what mindfulness. I try to describe to beginners as simple as possible, as direct as possible. As simple as possible, as direct as possible, I would say, just to be totally present. You don't talk about what is present. and what you know when you're present, that is a different matter. It's a matter to be totally, totally present. And you're really present, what is present in front of you. Reality. Right? You're really very awake and what is there? What's going on? And say, so reality is standing there right in front of you. But the human habit is they've too long been away from it. You know? And so we have a second phase. You don't understand that. If you understand that, everything is there in Vipassana. Like you see in the Bhattikarata Gatha, on the present moment. Aditana Wangamayana Patikangeanagan Yadatitam Pahinanda. What is it? Do not wander to the past, do not trace back the past, do not wander to the future, but to be unshakably, invisibly in the present Dharma. And that is, my friends, that is actually the sutta. It occurs 3 times in the Majjhima Nikaya. It's a very concise explanation of the principle of Vipassana. All in a nutshell. Because you're really present in that way without thinking of what is present. You don't without thinking how to prepare, but just really, really present. All the qualities of wholesomeness are already there. All the qualities of right concentration are already there. And you really experience with clarity, insight is already there. But for many people in the modern world, they're too far from, they've really forgotten too much about that. There are too many concepts and ideas. And so you have to work from 1 or 2 steps behind. And so we talk about mindfulness, sati, as a mental state, cetasika. And you describe it according to the characteristics that are present. So we come to one point where we describe where people can understand easily and try to bring out that mental state. Okay, so we describe it as clear awareness of the present. And clear awareness comes with peacefulness and comes with softness. So this basic quality of wholesomeness is present. And when the consciousness has this quality, then it becomes very efficient and workable in whatever thing you do. In daily life and all that. This is what nowadays the modern types of meditation like MBSR and all these type of things try to create, which are all very useful, like mindfulness in daily life. And so you see some of these people, they start telling people, we also teach Vipassana. You know, especially when I was in Netherlands. So are they practicing Vipassana? They start asking me, I say, if their practice leads to the realization of reality, anatta, non-self, then they are. If not, no. I'm not saying the practice is bad. The practice is good, but it is not Vipassana, and there's nothing to do with Vipassana inside. Like, for example, I have one of my students who was doing that, and he went to the States for the one of the more advanced and more favorite courses in this field. In US, there were hundreds or thousands of people applying for that. And so he went there. When he went there, he said they are very good. But they don't speak any word about the 3 universal characteristics. They don't mention anything about anatta. All right? I was surprised, but he was there. He was one of them. You should know. It's from the horse's mouth. They have a good reason for that because there are all those religious stigmas. You talk about no soul, you're dead. You won't get any business. But the leaders, they know because they encourage these people to actually go and practice the Vipassana, actual Vipassana course. So they're not prejudiced. They know. But by their method they teach, it's mainly for overcoming of stress and all those things in life, which is all very good. But here we are more interested in more than that, right? We want to develop liberating insight. And so they have this, all our practices are geared, methodology are geared toward the realization of this reality. Okay? And now I come to the point. What's the difference between samatha and vipassana meditation? What's the main difference? Anybody? Come on, you all know. Don't be shy. Anybody? Oh, I simply point people on the one at the back, right at the back. People trying to hide away right at the back. Oh, what do you think is the main difference? That's correct. Ah, what I would say better put is the nature of the object. The object of samatha is a concept. The object of vipassana is a reality. Right? The word, Pali word here is paramattha dhamma. You heard of the word before? Paramattha dhamma. And what is translated into English is what? Ultimate realities. Correct? So what are these ultimate realities that are objects of vipassana? What are they? And then we come up with the answer. Right? Mind and matter. Mind and material processes. And to be more specific, they go to saying even the 89 types of consciousness, citta, 52 types of mental states, cetasika, 28 qualities of materiality, rupa, and one, nibbana. These are the ultimate realities. And why are they called ultimate realities? Because they are not conceptual. They are not conventional truths. Okay? And when you look at it, they manifest three universal characteristics: impermanent, suffering, non-self. Correct? Huh? Lucy, correct, huh? The problem comes when you talk about it as an actual experience. Experience. Like consciousness, what is consciousness? What is it as an actual experience? When you say mental factors, mindfulness, what is it experienced when it's the ultimate reality? When you talk materiality, earth element, wind element, what is it as an actual experience of it? Yeah? And mind you, when you talk of it, it's experienced without conventions, without concepts. Okay? Once the concept comes, it's no longer ultimate reality, it's a concept. Rising, falling, the word rising and falling are all concepts. But we still make use of it for beginners to help us to direct our mind to the ultimate reality. But it's just a word, it's not the thing. You should not be attached to words. And you watch the rising, falling, okay, pato. Put your hand there, in, out, in, out, in, out. You feel it, you experience it. But do you experience it with mindfulness? That's one point, no? You may not be experienced with mindfulness. A lot of people, when they talk about mindfulness, they're actually concentrating, but they're not so mindful. A little bit of mindfulness, that does not make up vipassana. You may make up samatha, but not vipassana. Okay? Even when you have a lot of mindfulness, you just go up and down, up and down. It's not vipassana. It is not the ultimate reality. You're not watching the vipassana object. I heard. Please tell me if I'm wrong. But I actually also got it from the horse's mouth. I was in MBMC. I was talking to this super yogi. You know, no? At least one of them, I don't know, there may be more than one super yogis around, no? But there was this super yogi. You could see 12 hours, 24 hours to night non-stop. So old man. Are you the one? No. Could you see 24 hours? Because sometimes I be careful what I talk. I talk about somebody who's in the crowd. He could do that. Yes. You can do that. Say yes. Can you describe more about the rising falling? He just goes rising falling, or a little bit more than that. But he says his mind was very clear and very bright. Obviously, it's very good concentration, and he also have right concentration. But it's not vipassana concentration. So was he doing vipassana? So was he watching the vipassana object? No, not really. Falling, rising, falling doesn't mean you're watching the actual vipassana object. Right? You're watching a preliminary object. You're not watching the Paramattha Dhamma. You're watching the preliminary object. Even samatha has a preliminary object, which is not the samatha nimitta. Okay. And so we are going to start somewhere, you know. Before the baby walks, he needs to crawl. So understandable. So when you follow rising, falling, people might from rising, falling, then as you watch the beginning to the middle and the end of rising, falling, and so on, the teachers skillfully guide you. That's what I went through. But me, in my case, I wasn't the one that just believe one is one, two is two. No, I want to know why I'm watching this, what I'm watching, and so on. It was the beginning. So during the time Luang Por was there, he, correct, after watching for something, he asked me, what are you watching? Became like a Zen question. What are you watching? I'm watching rising and falling. Isn't that obvious? No, you're not watching that, you're watching the mind. But my mind's open, so I watch it. Oh yes, and my mind is there. I saw my mind there. So when I watched the mind, and I saw the mind was there, so immediately I saw Namarupa, the mind and the object. See, it's a difference. So when you watch, actually you watch the Vipassana, when I watch the mind, I saw the Paramattha, ultimate reality, ultimate presence. And from there, the others came in naturally. And so that's why I say, what are you watching? So you follow. So we say you don't just follow, you must feel the object. The object of Vipassana comes with direct experience of a quality that is being experienced. And this is a process. It's not something you grab onto. You grab onto that object, you're more watching it in the samatha way. Vipassana is a process. From beginners, I tell people first, you must, when you follow your Vipassana object, you flow with it. You don't cling to it. You don't hang on to it. You flow with it, and in the process of flowing with it, you observe, experience what the feeling is like, what the experience is like, what the object is like. So it is a process. That makes a difference. Then I tell people, look, the main essence of Kayanupassana, the body foundation of mindfulness, is what? Are sensations. Sensations. No? You know what are sensations? You hold, you feel the sensations. Rising, falling is a basically a sensation. Breath is a sensation. You know, even pain is a sensation. All these are sensations. And you watch it as a sensations, and you watch it as a process. Okay? Ah. So when you watch it as a process, watch it as sensations, clearly, then your mind is being directed towards the Paramatta Dhamma, the essential quality of materiality. Then you may ask, what about the elements? The basic qualities of the body foundation are elements: earth, water, fire, wind. Water is too subtle for a beginner, so we leave that out. The body object is directly experienced as one of the three elements: fire, wind, or earth. We usually talk of rising, falling as the wind. Huh? Then the basic element of the materiality is not the wind, it's the earth. So anyway, the two approach. One is looking at the element, but I prefer the sensations. You watch the sensations carefully, the element will manifest by itself. Either way, it also works. So, but you look at it in terms of sensations, then the process becomes clear. Then it leads to the perception of the conditioning and the three universal characteristics. But before we go into that, I would like to say something to give you an idea of what Paramatta Dhamma is. So usually people, at least as me for a start, at the beginning, when you talk about ultimate realities, I think of those in Abhidhamma, the 89 consciousness and so on and so on. That is true, because that is the beginning. But before you go to that, you have to go beyond the concepts of time, space, and person. Huh? You cannot think of time. You cannot think of form. You think of person. Those are conceptual things, and you have to see beyond that. Of course, words, of course. You watch rising, falling, beginning you use the word to help you to concentrate. After a while, you have to put down the word and just feel the experience, the thing, so what you call rising, falling. Okay? And when you try to follow the thing called rising, falling, you try to experience it. You must not think that I am watching the rising, falling. You have a sense that I, this big time meditator, is watching the rising, falling. Then you are stuck to the concept of the person. Like peanuts. Peanuts. This is a Red Baron riding aeroplane. No, the Snoopy, the comic strip. So you must not have, but people cannot have because the concept of I is so strong. You have to put that away aside. If you cannot, then at least you replace it with the idea that the mind is watching. It helps. Second, then you have to put aside the concept of the form. You cannot think of rising, falling as long or short. Long and short are concepts. Up and down are concepts. And the stomach is a concept. You cannot have all those there when you are watching ultimate realities. So I'm not watching, but then the idea is still there in your mind. And that has to be completely put aside, which is difficult for the beginner. So what happens is they just follow and with some training and they tell you how to describe all those things. Naturally, some of them will get to it after some time, but not everyone. So you watch this training from a certain tradition, a certain primary object, but not always like that. For example, we said in the beginning, we do the rising falling. That's what our teacher tells us. For me, no problem. You ask me to watch rising falling, I can watch my rising falling. Basically, I'm still very much of a simpleton. You ask me, no two or three, no three or four one. So I just follow. But not everybody is like that. I know many people, they watch rising falling. I cannot get rising falling. There was one old man who said, I cannot get rising falling. Really? I put my hand on his stomach. There's no rising falling. You know why? You touch his stomach, you touch his backbone. You balance your backbone, you touch his stomach. Like Siddhartha when he was undergoing self-mortification practices, it's too thin. No, of course, the other time his stomach is too big. You cannot expand anymore. Of course, that I don't touch the stomach. It's too embarrassing. Yeah. But it's understandable. No? Even the rising falling is not suitable for everyone. But doesn't mean you cannot practice vipassana. It's basically watching the elements or the sensations. Even though there's no rising falling, you put your hand on the stomach, there are sensations. Even you're too thin, you put your hand on the too thin, very thin, no stomach, you still get the sensations. So the object is there. So what can you say? I have a very funny story to tell you. One of my students has practiced Tibetan before and so on, and it seems that he can feel spirits and all those things because they do that kind of thing, especially in Taiwan and those places. I was in Taiwan and so on. So they said, once you're meditating, there was this spirit coming to him. I said, oh, what happened? He asked me, what am I doing? I said, I'm practicing Vipassana. And I said, can I practice also Vipassana? And the spirit says, no. Yes, you can. You can. He said, what do? We watch rising, falling. But the spirit said, I don't have a body. I cannot feel my rising, falling. So I thought, you watch your consciousness. Okay, fair enough, no? So consciousness is also Vipassana object. It's true. So anyway, this is how we go around trying to propagate the Vipassana practice. So we come back to the this thing. You have to feel the actual phenomena, sensations clearly with mindfulness. For example, sensations, material, even in and out breath are sensations. Can you use the in and out breath as Vipassana object? Yes, of course you can. Yeah. But we still recommend this one. You see, because my teacher tells you to do so. No, because I asked my teacher, why should we watch rising and falling? In and out breath. Ask my teacher in Burma. Mahasisanta, who's Zavana. When he looks at me, yes, Sadhu, anything you say, Sadhu. So, yes, rising, falling is generally a better object because it's grosser. And the three characteristics manifest clearer than the anapanasati object. Because of the nama, clearer nama rupa. What happens to this in and out breath? Now, what happens they do in the in and out breath is usually these people do anapanasati. They go into samatha first, and they go into jhanas. When they go into jhanas, they can't come out. The mind is very sharp and clear. So very fine sensations, if they direct it in the vipassana way, they can perceive it clearly as well. But for people who have not received such deep absorptions and concentrations, no. I've taught people and they do it in and out breath. So, for example, when I teach in Europe, I don't say, no, watch your rising falling, don't watch your in and out breath. You know, I was telling the story. I said, here Malaysia is different from Burma. In Burma, we watch a rising falling, you tell them to watch, they can watch, no problem. In Malaysia, you tell them to watch rising falling, they say, very small, can hardly feel it. Little bit, yes, little bit. And when it's little bit, you cannot see much. It's not a suitable object for concentration or insight. Then the Italian says, in our case, when you tell us to watch rising falling, we will ask, why must we watch rising falling? Please tell me, why can't I watch other things? Europe is like that. Western world is like that. No, it's a different story, you know. So if they want to watch in and brown, you can watch in and brown. Then slowly I guide you. I can guide you in watching in breath out and breath as Vipassana object. Yes, it's not the best object. But when they are more open, I tell them, no, rising falling is a better for progress in Vipassana. Like that. Finally, you have to go and observe what is there. And you put away, bypass all, go through, put aside all the concepts, and you go to just pure experience of the object at the moment. At that moment. It's a present moment. The power of the now. Even the now is a bit too much. It's already a time concept. The now is time, but the past, present, future are time concepts. You must not bring even to the idea of the now. But the now is the clearest of the three. So once you bring it to the present, you don't think of time anymore. It's just an experience. And that's the Paramattha Dhamma. Now the interesting thing is, when you think of the first Paramattha as it really is, clearly it falls under the first insight knowledge. Nama Rupa Parichedanya comes under it. And the special characteristic of the first insight knowledge is anatta, non-self. And so you have this thing coming in. As an experience, what do you mean by anatta? Right? Anatta has two types of definition. One is the negative definition. What is not atta? The negative definition is conceptual. What is not? It's already thinking. It's not. The positive is what is present. So when you experience what is present, and that is the ultimate reality, right? But depending on the degree and sharpness of perception, then you experience what is there. This we call it the Paccakajnana, empirical knowledge. Empirical knowledge is an experience, clear, deep experience, free from concepts of what is there. Now, experience, now you have to differentiate. Experience, the different types of experience. No? You eat a good durian, you say, wow, so lovely. It's a marvelous durian experience. But you don't call it insight knowledge, do you? It's probably associated with craving. Right? I've got a terrible experience today. I feel so bad because my wife cheated on me, my husband cheated on me, my partner cheated on me. Everything was so bad. I want to die. This is what you call a terrible experience. But it's not insight. No? It's not insight into suffering. It's being devastated with suffering. There's a lot of aversion, anger, and depression, all there. There's nothing to do with insight. Right? So, experiencing and experience with insight are two different things. Now, the experience goes through a long process. we are talking of the Pachaka Jnana. Pachana, empirical experience. Which when the reality is there, the mind immediately goes to it and experiences it. At that moment, there's no thought about time, space, person, leg, hands, or ideas of what is pain or not pain, all those. No, it's just pure experience. All right? For example, there's a bell, is that bell here? Okay, so now, okay, the bell. Hear the sound. Hear the sound? Is this ultimate reality? In a way, it is, but not so precise. Because when you say, also a sense of time already. It's not a single moment. There is some period involved. So the best thing you can get is the very first moment of contact. What's the first? Is the first moment of contact? No. It's just like a thud. When you go deep into that and experience that, and then you experience it as like ultimate reality on the first level of anatta. Because you let people just hear sound, do they understand anatta? So you can hear all the music, boom, chak, chak, boom, chak, chak, bum, 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 bum. People, oh, wonderful music, there's no insight. They may have a very sharp mind, even sharp mindfulness now, but they don't see anatta. Okay? So, now this Pachakanyana can occur with all the 16 levels of insight. And the first insight, the second insight, the third insight, fourth insight. The first insight, when you have having experience with the first insight, Nama Rupa Cheda Jnana is one type of experience. When you go to the fourth insight of rising dissolution, it's another type of experience. Right? Is the experience in the first insight and the fourth insight the same? No. The first insight, when you experience of the first insight and the 16th insight, is it the same? It can't be. Correct? The one is already realization, no? Magaphala, Jnana, Pachavikana Jnana, all those down there. But they're all experiencing the same reality called Paramattha. And Paramattha is experienced as an empirical knowledge. So now you understand the meaning of Paramattha, ultimate realities. Better word is just reality. And you can experience reality without mindfulness. You look at the Abhidhamma thought process, the first thought process that goes through the mind is Paramattha. But it may not be, often it's not experienced with mindfulness, experienced with craving, anger, delusion, which comes with the latent tendencies. All right? So you please remember that. Because if you are practice Vipassana and you read about inside knowledge and you read about all these things and your mind is stuck with trying to get these qualities, of you just stuck there. I've met people who are always watching rising, falling, and always stuck to the rising, falling. They're stuck to the rising, falling concept. They can hardly go beyond. They go beyond a little bit. And after that, if they get the first inside knowledge, Nama Rupa Parajana, and they're very attached to them. They say, no, I'm not attached, but they are attached. And so they can very difficult for them to go beyond. They will always see hardness, they will always see pain, you always see that level of experience. All right? And then they get stuck there. Some people are stuck there for a long time. And you know that a person in this level of knowledge can experience so many things that are like the higher inside knowledges, but they are not. You watch properly now. Okay? So what decides that they are not stuck there. Normally, in practice or intensive meditation, they slowly do go further. So the second insight knowledge becomes very critical. The nama rupa, pacaya pargaha jnana. The second insight knowledge into conditioning, conditionality. Correct? I'm sure you all read about it. Conditioning. Now, what is knowledge of conditioning? This is important. Unfortunately, this has not been so explained very clearly to many people. And many people don't understand because they don't have a very clear experience of the first insight knowledge anyway. And this here language, it defies language because you're talking about experiences beyond concepts. But people eventually do experience it, but they cannot explain. And sometimes explain to them, they also cannot really figure out. And it has to be experienced clearly because unless it's experienced clearly, then you can see the penetrative, transcendental nature of the Vipassana mindfulness and the Vipassana experience. Because it's like the first insight knowledge is just a beginning level, like the surface of the ocean. You must go into the water, right? So the first insight is experiencing the reality at one level. The second insight is experiencing the reality beyond the first level. That means you're no longer on the surface. You start going deep into the water. So the first experience of insight, is only a stepping stone. You have to go through that. Once you know how to go through that, and then it starts going through. The trouble is nowadays things become complicated. Because people say that unless you can recollect 3 past lives, you cannot go beyond the second insight knowledge. And they can say such things. Which means to me that they don't know what the second insight knowledge is. It's very ridiculous. It's obvious because with so many practitioners, we know that in all aspects, they have gone beyond the second insight knowledge. They've gone to, if we go to Udyapaya Jnana, Bhanga Jnana, obviously have gone through. But they cannot really describe. For me, I understood it directly when I first experienced that. I did not know that name was called that knowledge. But later when I read about how that was it, I experienced in my first few weeks of retreat. Yeah. Understand? What they normally explain is no. When you see the mind, if there's no rising, there won't be falling. If there's no falling, there won't be rising. So rising is depending on the falling, and falling depending on rising. Sometimes they explain like that. No? In beginning, there's no the middle and end, and the end there's no middle. So they're all dependent. Is it correct? In a way, it's correct. But you must know what is behind that, the meaning that is there, the conditioning. Or you can say, okay, the mind, when it sees a bright object, is very clear. When you see a dark object, it's very dark. And so there's understanding and conditioning. Yes, true. But that explanation is more to an intellectual explanation, and the person listens to it, gets an intellectual understanding. It's not wrong. But if a person really experiences it, it's a different. Okay? Take, for example, the mind and the object. All condition, there are 24 conditionings. One of the basic conditioning is objective conditioning. The mind and object. Object conditions the mind, and so on. Right? So the thing is, in experience, many conditioning takes place at once. Okay. For example, when you watch the awareness, the mind and the object keeps changing. And the mind changes with the object. You know? At that moment, you must remember that at that moment, the mind is very clear, not just racing, pulling, racing. No, very clear, very quite very concentrated. And at that time, you see the change quite fast, fluctuating. When the change is fluctuating very fast, and you see the mind fluctuating very fast with the change of the object, like sensations, rising, very fast. No, all the time is very clear and very sharp, and you see them like that. One influencing, changing. Oh, these two are changing in pairs, very fast. So when at that point in fast, you cannot differentiate one between the other. They're like together. Well, it's a common example is when they're together, that means you're like seeing two things at the same time. And two things at the same time are changing very fast, dependent on each other. So you're like watching at once. Except that you know that at that point, the sense of anatta is very clear. One of the main basic criteria for insight knowledge is anatta. The sense of reality is very clear. So you're not actually watching one thing or two things. You're watching conditioning. Here, please bear in mind one thing. Change and conditioning are two different things. Time and conditioning are also, and change are two different things. They're not the same. We always associated change with time. And when you associate change with time, we think, no, and also we confuse ourselves, but we must always have one object at one time. This is theory, but in practice, it means something else. So when you see the, let's say, change and moving, time need not be involved. The time concept may not be involved. So when you see the change, the moment something arises, the moment it disappears. So is it arising or is it disappearing? You can say it's both arising and disappearing at the same time. But arising and disappearing are certain subtle concepts. So when you can see that all together, then you can see the conditioning is present. You don't know the words. Once I was in Burma teaching with the teacher, Uzawana again, my first Burmese teacher. I watched pain. The moment the pain comes, it disappears. He said something that struck my mind. You have just experienced dukkha, viparinama dukkha, and sankhara dukkha at the same time. You know, heard of this three dukkha? The thought of suffering, the thought of dukkha is pain of body and mind. That's the pain, headache, etc. Viparinama dukkha is what? Huh? What do you say? Change. Actually, viparinama dukkha refers to seeing the pain in pleasure. Sankhara dukkha is beyond the Vedana, pain, pleasure, neutral. It's beyond the three stages. So when he told me that, and I had that clear experience, immediately I know the meaning of these three words as an experience. And so remember that when the important part of this Vipassana is not just arriving at the first level, experiencing the specific characteristics as non-self. But that type of mindfulness experience is transcendental. It penetrates beyond that. So it does not stay there. It keeps going. This is very important because you can be attached to any insight knowledge except last few, where the unconditioned nibbana occurs as an object. But before that, a person can get attached to it. Okay? It's one thing. Now, another thing I would like first as you is that I was talking about what important thing is first is you have to go through forego the concepts, conventions, which includes the certain basic concepts in the beginning of picture. Second, you have to get to the experience the anatta, putting aside the concepts and time, space, person, form is one thing, but to be able to experience what is beyond that is another thing. You experience beyond that, then at least you can get the first insight, knowledge. Then it go to the second, you must be able to see beyond. Then there's another interesting story that happened. Where was it overseas? One lady, very intelligent, she read a book and she read a Mahasi book, the Manual of Insight, is it? The one was translated, Mahasi Manual of Insight. So she found out something. There Mahasi mentioned the third insight knowledge is described is inferential knowledge. Oh, can it be? How can I third insight knowledge is inferential? And then I have to explain. You see, there's already the trouble with the interpretation of words. The Pali word is anumana jnana. Anu means again, to watch, to know again. Anumana jnana. Now this has been translated as inferential. It's not wrong, but I don't think it's complete. Inferential means it has first to be differentiated from empirical. Empirical is at the moment of direct contact. Inferential is just occurs immediately after. You understand it in terms of, unless you understand the thought process. The 16 thought processes, viti, you study Abhidhamma. You study Abhidhamma? The 16, 17 thought moments and all those are the first moment of at the moment of contact, there's one portion, there's a Paccaka Jnana. At that moment, you experience very sharp, clear mindfulness, not without. Sharp enough to produce understanding of anatta. But of course, in that moment, you don't think. But the experience and the understanding is experience and realization is there. There's no explanation. The mind just knows it. The moment of emergence, to the coming out of that empirical knowledge, there's a immediate after reflection. The reflection is nothing of reflecting of something, but a reflection like a mirror. It has brings an impression on the more normal thought processes, also still very concentrated. There's no thinking, that was the experience. There's no thinking about experience, at least that was the experience. The first part, you don't know, there are no concepts. There is the starting, the budding of the concept, not yet. Then later, with further inferentials, there's no longer direct inferential, subsequent inferential. Then you say, I experienced this, I experienced that, that was my experience, and you start describing. Then the process goes further into conceptualizations. Okay, which means that the impression left immediately after is used as an object for further processes. In the long run, there may be something not right about that. That time you're not so mindful. Okay, so what we describe, you read in the Abhidhamma or the Mahasi book about third insight knowledge, fourth insight knowledge, all those are inferential knowledges because they're described. And if you do not have the original Paccaka, empirical knowledge, you won't understand it properly. Unless you have that imprint of the first one clearly, then it is. Otherwise, people know they listen to what Nibbana is, what, then they go and close my eyes and I fall asleep. I got Nibbana. No. Obviously, they don't have the experience, but they think what it should be. And the trouble is when they think what it should be, the mind can create. It looks like it, but it's not. Take for example a method that people meditate and then after a while they make aditana. After a few days, I want to experience the first insight, I want to experience second insight, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. They experience things that could be quite like as described in books, but it's not that. It's formulated by conceptual things. Something very wrong with that method. For example, there was this group, they went to this place in Slovakia. They're very good. No, I said, after 3-4 days, they already got third, fourth inside knowledges. I said, how many of them? Almost all of them. I said, please, tolong. Why are you so naive? I think so easy. But the interesting thing is the mind can produce it. It's dangerous. And this thing, I see, very complicated. At the beginning, they may have something like that. Then the mind keeps creating and it forgets about the actual empirical part. It starts creating only secondary. And so they're stuck there. So the basic idea behind today's talk is make sure your mindfulness is Vipassana mindfulness, not conceptual. No? And it's very clear and it's very sharp onto anatta. Everything as paramatta, as reality, not just as levels of reality. Okay? And then you get the experience clearly enough to know. And of course, the best criteria is your defilements become less and less. It means you have more inside knowledge, the lesser will be your ego. You know? Otherwise, people, they practice, the ego become bigger and bigger. There's something wrong. Okay? Because once you get the mindfulness as penetrative awareness, the awareness that cuts through the reality, as it cuts through the reality, the experience and reality are becoming deeper and deeper, and so the defilements are becoming less and less. That should be the way. Any questions? For 2 hours. I think next talk will be simpler because I noticed that a number of practitioners are stuck because they don't understand this. They just hold on to the object. The idea is not just hold on. The beginning concentration is like holding, but it's more like following. And then its idea is to see through the object. And the idea behind the 3 characteristics in the third insight knowledge is going beyond. You know? 3 characteristics, they talk impermanent and so on. You read this from the books, they are conceptual ideas. When the accurate thing is to go beyond. Idang me punyang asawa kayawahang otu. Idang me punyang nibbanasa pacaya hotu. Imang no punya bagang sabba satanang dema. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.